All right. Well, super. Well, welcome. Thank you, Kathy, for the introductions. We're excited about being here. And I'm actually just here going to be excited to show off a fantastic teacher, Miss Melanie Dela Cruz. She's actually, again, an 8th grade teacher at Walter Johnson. She's going to introduce herself in a little bit. But we're excited about really thinking about how pedagogy still is needed even more today, as we know that those kind of lights on moments for kids are so needed. And we really believe in that the pedagogy allows us to see more and more of those moments for kids. And so we're excited about presenting today and kind of using this kind of turning the lights on as a theme for all of us. And so to begin, I want to say, Melanie, please introduce yourself and let us know who you are.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Melanie Dela Cruz, and I work at the IB School Walter Johnson Junior High. I teach 8th grade English, and I had the pleasure of meeting Sean at my school, learning about Achieve 3000. And so today we want to talk about turning on the lights for kids.
Yeah, and if you notice, I found this little graphic. I love it. We're turning on lights around the world. That's what we're doing, which is great. But so the agenda today is really 3 parts. It's a little welcome, and but then also really unpacking kind of these best practices associated to, we call them the 3 moments of a lesson. And then actually at the end, we're going to talk about a little review and reflect and respond. I know that the initial title talked about pre-K to grade 5. We do apologize. It might, some of the things might related to not just probably more grades 3 and up, maybe not so pre-K to grade 5. So just know that I apologize if you're coming in thinking you're a pre-K teacher or a grade 1 teacher, but I even think even maybe grade 2 teachers will be able to actually apply some of the same skills that we're going to talk about today.
Definitely.
So some insights that I think we can probably all agree with is that really kind of given the demands of kind of where we are with CCR and college career readiness and the Common Core and NGSS and the C3 framework and social studies and all that, right? There's kind of a far greater alignment in an integration of really kind of this disciplinary and best practices when it comes to literacy, language, and content kind of being infused together. And that's why, again, I think the pedagogy is so needed as we continue to develop our lesson plans and lesson design and really interact with students. So that I think that insight is something that we truly believe in. And if you want to just jot and chat your thoughts to that insight as well, but just know that I think that's really important for us to identify is that these demands are there, and we really need this integration and alignment to really make a difference for kids.
Okay, so today what we've done is we have taken Mike Schmoker's lesson design and really just try to condense it to make things more simple. So that's what we're going to be talking about, 3 moments in a lesson. So it all will include learning objective, anticipatory sets, teach and model, guided practice, check for understanding, adjust and reteach. And so including independent practice. Excuse me, sorry. But we will be discussing all of this in terms of 3 moments of a lesson. So there are 3 moments in a lesson: ready, interact, and extend. So at the very beginning of any lesson, we know that we have to prepare our learners for success and to build background knowledge, right? So that's when we use anticipatory sets. And more importantly, just like the 9 principles of learn, resonance, learning, we know that one of the most important things before we even start a lesson is making sure the kids know what they're learning and why they're learning it. So that's all part of our ready moment. Then we move on to interacting. So interacting with the text in any context area is very important. So learning strategies that will help us teach students how to interact with the text is our second moment in a lesson. And the third moment relates to extend. So that's when we move past the text and start making connections.
Yeah, Melanie, I know that you're kind of thinking your doctoral program and you have a book next to you. Do you mind just sharing a little bit about your book that you have?
Oh my goodness. So this book, this is a very expensive book, but it is a needed book, especially if you're going to delve into like curriculum and instruction. And at one point in time, that's what I was really working towards. And this book is called Effective Instruction, a Handbook of Evidence-Based Strategies. So these 3 authors, Friedman, Harwell, and Schneppel, they looked through thousands and thousands of educational studies. And so in here are the different strategies that they talk about that goes across the board. And it doesn't matter matter what type of class. It's, for elementary, middle school, high school, and including college. And everything we're going to talk about actually relates to an effective strategy. So everything that we're going to discuss in the 3 moments of turning on the lights for students is going to be based on educational research.
Thank you. I know that you're probably proud of that, which is awesome. Congrats. Yeah. So the first moment is we're going to talk about is really think about getting ready. And there's kind of these building blocks, right, of a successful learner. And we actually talk about the 3 V's, voice, vocab, and video. I think what's nice about these 3 V's, right, really the goal of this is to really engage students, to really trade and exchange ideas in really a safe place. And more importantly, that the teachers are really wanting to make those connections to that student schema and connect that prior knowledge to really the topic that's going to be, or content that's going to be introduced here shortly. But I think the 3 moments really are this first moment being characterized by the 3 V's, make it simple for us to remember, but more importantly, and allows again for lots of engagement. So the first V, if you notice, is around voice. And we really believe in actually having students provide a voice here, giving their thoughts, their opinions, their beliefs around content. And so we know that, again, a lot of times tools start with some type of kind of activating question that gets them into the text. So we just have 2 examples, again, one from the Achieve 3000 tool, another one from the Actively Learn tool, really around, again, getting them involved in actually that schema or that background knowledge. But I think more importantly to that is that we'd hope that you would also apply some of these great strategies that might be Avid, might be Kagan, to really actually bring about those collaborative conversations that would make it even more engaging. Maybe the ones that you love is like the infinity map or the speed dating / if you will, concentric circles, or maybe it's a fishbowl activity, right? Any of those kinds of activities that would be, again, tied to giving kids a voice, I think is really, really critical. I think so many times we forget that language or the interaction of it's more of a collaboration conversation is really needed to get them excited and firing about, oh, I'm going to be now engaged in this type of text. And now I've given my opinion verbally. Others know my opinion. We've had interactions with it. So any type of, if you will, engagement when it comes to collaboration here, I think is really, really important. Just again, there might be some people in chat that says, hey, what are thinking about some of these strategies here? Is there 1 or 2 of these that stick out to you? Like, I've done this is fun. I've done that, this is great. Or I have a great other collaborative conversation activity that I like to do. Just want to quickly maybe jot down something in chat and maybe share in chat as well, if you want to. Fishbowl, thank you, Nancy.
Anyone use Jamboards? Start a conversation and to delve in, use to delve before reading a text. Awesome. Excuse me.
Perfect, super. Along with the collaboration and conversation is the next is our vocabulary words. Again, trying to lay it on for vocabulary words as well. Melanie, go ahead.
Okay, so we like to, when we think of teaching vocabulary, there's, many different ways. I'm sure there are some strategies that definitely don't work, and there are those that do. So looking at providing opportunities for reading, previewing the text before determining which words you think your students need to know, and then pre-teach meaningful words and phrases. All of those are important, especially providing direct instruction and multiple exposures of the vocabulary in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So if we go ahead and go to the next slide. So here are a couple of strategies that Sean's going to talk about.
Yeah, so the first one is, I love, by the way, Isabel Beck. If you don't know her, The Bringing Words to Life is fantastic. It's a must-have book you need to all have for sure. But Isabel Beck talks about one of my 2 favorites. One is called Categories. And really the category kind of protocol is this, is you take that target word, in this case, captivate on the very top. And actually, as a teacher, you begin to think about what are some examples that I want them to apply that word to. So of course we would define the word captivate, but then I actually want them to then go ahead and give examples. So one example is maybe ways to captivate. So in that rectangle, they would be generating thoughts about ways to captivate, right? Or reasons why we'd want to maybe captivate others, right? So there's just 2 examples right there of a category that they can actually respond to in that component. So again, categories is a great one. Another one I love is called scaling. What I love about scaling, and it actually looks at kind of like an antonym and a synonym. So if we took the word, like say, negligible here, and we were able to go ahead and put it on one side, right, which means kind of small or trivial. But then on the other side, we actually have them begin to think about what would be the opposite of that. Maybe it's colossal, maybe it's huge, maybe it's something else. So we have kind of 2 words on each side of the scale. And then we began to put words in the middle, right? Kind of scale up, or the degree of words to go from one side to the other side, right? So that they can work in pairs to do that. They can work in groups to do that. But they would come up with, again, maybe tiny. Where would that be? Where would huge? Where would gigantic, right? So along this kind of continuum of words, we call it scaling of words or continuum of words. So another great kind of strategy or practice around teaching purposeful words and those meanings, and applying some of those concepts.
Okay, and so if you have digital programs, like at our school, we use Actively Learn and we use Achieve. And what I like about both of those programs is that the kids can use the tools that are embedded in there to help them define words. So they don't have to open up another tab to go on dictionary.com or anything like that. They can just highlight the word, for instance, nonprofit, and then what will pop up will be different tools. They can translate, and which is great for students who are still learning English. There's the define tool where if you just click on it, then it will provide the students with all the definitions. And that's what I like, because kids, often just pick the first definition and they think, okay, that's what the word means. But really delving into the different definitions, and does this definition fit for this particular word, and then using context clues to help them truly understand what the word means, that really will help them with their comprehension. On the right side, you're going to see Achieve and how their vocabulary is set up. So they have the words set up at the very beginning of the lesson. So those are that pre-teach for the meaningful words and phrases. So they have that there. The kids can listen to it. They can see the definition in relation to how the word's being used in the text. Another thing is that they also have the same tool where students can highlight the word and define it. And more importantly, I've just used it over the week where some of the kids don't understand the words in the question. So that's typically why they get the questions wrong. And so it shows you as a teacher, they have a hard time inferring, or they have a hard time coming up with the best antonym for whatever word that's given. Well, they can use these digital tools to help them define these words and have a better understanding of what it is that they're expected to understand and to read. So these are great digital examples, as well as the ones that the ones from the book that Sean showed. But we all know that copying the word and the sentence and the definition, over and over again. I don't know if you had to do that, but I just remember my teachers always gave us, here are your words, vocabulary words, look up the definition, write it 10 times each. And that was supposed to help me remember, and that never worked for me. So these are the least effective strategies, guys. So memorizing a definition sheet, that doesn't necessarily help. But there are more effective strategies like direct, explicit instruction of words in context, just like using the digital tools, or scaling, or categorizing, just like Sean had presented, using simple conceptual maps. So if you use thinking maps to help kids understand a word, those work as well. Teaching specific context clues. Yes, quiz, trade, that is a great one. I love using that strategy as well. It's very interactive, and it does help the kids learn, definitions and even terms, like literary terms. I've used that for literary terms as well. And then just directly teaching the word and learning strategies, that is effective. Now we have a video that we want to share with you next. It's to prepare the learners. So we're going to go ahead and play this short video. And so whenever we're done with the video, I want you to write your thoughts in the chat. If something pops out to you that this is something that you do, it validates what you already do in the classroom, or it's something that you never thought of, then please feel free to enter that in the chat. Sean, you're on mute. Sorry
about that. Yeah, so this one doesn't have the video yet, but just so you know that video is next. Then the last V, right, is video. So we talked about voice, giving kids a voice, having them introduced with vocabulary. The last part in this kind of getting ready phase or preparing the learner is video, right? So what videos do, they're relevant. They make it all of a sudden, oh, it's on a video, it's on YouTube, right? It must be relevant, right? Grabs their attention. Of course, we know that it's important to actually have them, again, see those pictures and make those connections. So just know that I think video is really important as we begin. And when you think about video, we know that video is kind of two parts. One is their embedded videos that can actually then, that questions can be added to if you so desire, or are there as well. Or they can import your own videos. So again, thinking about maybe how you're utilizing digital tools, both tools can actually be very well used, right? Ones that are embedded within lessons or ones that you actually import yourself. So really easy ways to, again, entice or use videos to support your getting ready phase. So a quick review of the 3 moments or the 3 V's when it comes to the first moment. Any ahas or any questions or any thoughts you have, any comments about this first kind of getting ready phase, giving them voice, working with vocabulary, and also video. Yeah, super. I love that question. And we get that question actually quite a bit of time when it comes to just, again, thinking about your kids. I would say this again, I wouldn't necessarily do all 3 necessarily all the time, but you might say, again, this lesson, I think voice is the best time to use this, right? Or the next one lesson might be, you know what, video is the best thing to use here, right? We're just giving you options again around how to best prepare students. So again, I don't think you need to do all 3 every time. And Melanie, please speak to maybe some of the examples you've had as well. I think you're on mute. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I muted myself. Sorry, I was going between the chat and looking at the screen. But yes, I definitely would look at the lesson and what would be best for that lesson, because sometimes it might be better to do a voice activity versus vocabulary, because maybe at that moment in time you just want to get them engaged. You just want them to start thinking about the topic or the subject that you are going to delve into before your particular unit. And let's just be real that there are times in our classes where we have so many interruptions. Maybe the activity you had to start the engagement didn't quite work right. You might have to plug in something else and try something else. And, because the very beginning part of your lesson is key. So if you don't have that engagement, you're not going to be able to go on to that second moment. And it's going to be a little bit harder for you to get the kids engaged to then, interact with the text. So really important to, determine, what works best for your kids as well, because let's say some classes would rather have a video. That would be more helpful for them to really delve into whatever your topic is. So again, it depends on the content area. It depends on, what level students you are, your audience are, because my CC classes, they loved the videos. So I usually use videos to help get them engaged. And then we went to the vocabulary. So kind of, it just really depends. Sean?
Yeah, perfect. No, I love that response. Super. Moment of the lessons. Number 2, the interaction. I call this the money ball, right? This is like everything, right? If you're not actually helping kids, and if you notice you're modeling and supporting students with the interaction, this is where all of that comprehension happens. And I think all those teachers, we know that, right? And then I want to say, this is the work of your lesson. Like this kind of the ready, you kind of maybe have a routine, but I want to say the work of the lesson is right here, this modeling of this interaction. And I truly believe in that, having even some type of pro tip of a schedule that's kind of on a monthly basis that identifies week 1 of every week or every month, we're always going to use graphic organizers in my class for this period. And what this I think does, it takes the kind of the planning also off of your shoulders to know that, oh, our interaction is going to be kind of just 4 parts. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. That's it, right? And we're able to truly then kind of dive and direct our interactions around those pieces. So again, we're going to dive into those a little bit later, a little bit deeper. But I think that's the goal here, is to let them know and really model and support that. And I think, I mean, we've all seen this gradual release component, but what I love about this piece that I don't want us to forget, it's this I do, right? I'm part of the model, and it's the we do together. But if you notice, this next part is this collaborative component, that you do it with your peers together before you actually do it by yourself. So I think just a nice, again, a little reminder as we go back and thinking about these moments, as we're modeling, as we're supporting, that again, that I do, yes, we do it together. Now you do it in a small group, or you do it with a partner, you do it together, and now do it by yourself, right? Getting that gradual release kind of model happening there. So I think that's really important as you think about these annotation components. So we're gonna watch a quick little video of our friend, Dr. Douglas Fisher, share about his importance or his thoughts on annotation. So we're gonna do a couple things here. I apologize, we're gonna have to new share here in a moment. And if you want to make sure, Melanie, can you hear it?
Yes.
Annotations slow readers down. They learn more and they pay attention more when they are annotating. It causes them to think about what they're reading. I know there's a lot of work on fluency, and fluency in reading is important, but sometimes we want students to slow down and think deeply, carefully, and intentionally as they read. If the text is worth it for close reading, they need to read slowly and purposefully. There are several ways to annotate a text. I think about 3 foundational annotation skills that I think students should learn, but then I want them to know they can annotate text independently, individually, with additional tools. Let me explain. I think students should learn to underline key ideas, important, main, central ideas in a text. Because if they underline those on a consistent basis, they will develop a habit for noticing things that are important. I think students should circle words and phrases that are confusing or unclear. That forces them to monitor when they're not understanding the text and highlights where they should go back and resolve for unknown words. And third, I think they should write margin notes to summarize and synthesize what the author is saying. Those 3 habits are foundational across all kinds of content areas and grade levels. But I don't want to limit students. Annotations don't have to look the same across all the students in your classroom. If a student wants to use questions in the margin, or if a student wants to number things, encourage them to do so. Students should learn to annotate digitally as well as in print. They can underline and highlight using the variety of tools. Achieve has tools that allow students to annotate on screen. I practice on paper, and then I require students to learn to annotate or apply those annotations across all the things they read closely and carefully.
Super. So it just helps us, again, just a reminder from Dr. Douglas Fisher as well about, again, the importance, right, of annotation. So real quickly, just to sum that up a little bit, is thinking about annotation. He talks about the 3 parts: underlining, right, circling, and then margin notes. Now, what I love about the margin notes, he really talks about questioning, the surprises, what surprises you, and also the connections that are made. So I think those 3 pieces are really important as notes are being taken. And of course, we know that the annotation on screens can also be the same, whether with colors, as well as getting in the notes sections on screens or in the Google Doc, whatever that might look like. And again, maybe I'm old school, but I still believe in a notebook. We have a computer in front of us, but don't we all have a notebook next to us? I think, again, that's the way of work. So I actually truly believe in anytime we're interacting with text, that we actually have a notebook next to us, and our notes are actually also in that notebook as well.
And so I wanted to add some extra annotation techniques that you can use, but specifically for fiction. Because when you're reading a novel or you're reading a short story, there's some other things that you might want to teach the kids, what to highlight. Circle if you allow them to have their own copy. But, most of the time, we have a textbook or we have the novels and they can't write in it. So sometimes, you have to use other techniques like using that notebook that Sean was talking about. So one of the things would be to make sure that students are highlighting or circling the names of the characters when they see a character pop up in their reading, and then to write whatever information that they've learned. So that direct or indirect characterization, because that's really important for them to be able to know who the characters are in order to determine who the protagonist is and the antagonist and so forth. And then having that notebook around to keep a running list of the character traits or any information that they can get about the characters, so that way later on, if you have students, do a character analysis, whether or not it's on a graphic organizer, whether or not it's on it's an essay, then the kids will have those annotations to go back and look at. Now, if you're doing it digitally, I've used Actively Learn, and so what I would teach the kids would be to highlight the sentence or phrase or whatever the notes that denote anything that lets us know what the character looks like, what the character says. So that would be indirect and direct characterization. And then what you can do on Actively Learn, which I love, is the fact that you can actually label your different types of notes. So you can use color and you can label it. So if, for me, I like to have the kids write notes on the characters. So as you can see in the picture, characters and plot. So when they want to just look at notes, all of their annotations at the end, when they're done reading, they can just click on characters and plot, and then they can find all the notes that relate to that. So, that's what you can do digitally, which is awesome. In a notebook, I'm a highlighter type of person, so I color code everything. So for me, I would have to look through my notes wherever I, wrote a title that said characterization or something like that. So another thing about annotating for fiction, Sean, if you can go to the next slide, would be to summarize after each chapter. So we know, if you ever have kids reading on their own, you said they have to do independent, reading SSR outside of, class or even after class, after their classwork, having them summarize after each chapter will not only help them with their summarization skills, but at the same time, it's going to help them remember what was in each chapter, so that then when they do have to go back to the text to find that textual evidence for whatever it is you have them write about, they will have those notes. Another way you can have them kind of summarize would be number 5 on here, where you would give each chapter a title. So my accelerated students, I like to give them that option, because sometimes for them, they don't necessarily need to write a summary paragraph of the chapter. They may need to just write a title, and that kind of helps them remember what happened in each chapter when they have to go back to do their writing. And then number 4, highlighting textual evidence. We all know that that's something the kids have to be able to do. Especially in English class, if you're having them write on, do some type of literary analysis paper. So I like to have them color code, especially if I use Actively Learn, and to highlight the conflict, the climax, symbolism, any allusions, different types of irony. I mean, it really depends on what literary terms or devices you're having them focus on, maybe for that particular text or maybe for that unit. And that's why I feel that you need to have some extra tools for you when you teach kids to annotate for fiction, because you're going to have some of this in your any of your activities. You're going to have the kids, write an analysis paragraph on theme. So why not teach them how to find the information that's going to help them write for that? So it's another way of helping them brainstorm ideas, but we're just kind of doing it ahead of time. And then graphic organizers is definitely something that could be useful to them. You can have them annotate and then have them use those annotations to help them write that essay for later on, or whatever it is that you're having them do. A research paper, let's say if you're having them do some kind of research paper for science class or history, then any of these thinking maps would work, and they're based on brain research. So I don't know if you're familiar with those, but these work well. But of course, any graphic organizer that can help kids organize their ideas. The one on the right is from the Achieve program that, a lot of the teachers that I work with, they've used their particular graphic organizers to help them write for those thought questions or the respond questions for after reading an article. So those would all work really well. Those are great tools to use. And then Cornell Notes is another tool to use. This is, across the board for any subject area, even the younger ones can use it. So what I've provided to you is basically all the tools I use for a lesson on understanding characterization. So on the right side is a little video that I had the kids watch on Actively Learn. It's a 2-minute and 7-second video. There are 4 questions on there for them. And as they watch the video, I had them copy my Cornell Notes template. If you can go ahead and click on that first one. The first link is just the basic template. Okay, and if you don't know anything about Cornell Notes, this is a way that we teach kids how to take notes. So it's just not writing down anything. It's a way to organize their notes, and a study tool as well, especially if we do it on paper. Okay, so you have the 2 columns. One column is where you would write the keyword, a phrase, a question, or a picture. Okay, and then on the right side, that would be where the answers to the questions would be, the definitions, examples that they would come up with, or they would find within a text or a video. Okay, at the very bottom is a section where students would summarize their learning. And I always tell the kids just 1-sentence summary for each subtopic or keyword that you've learned, okay? And that helps them with their memory. And I always give them the explanation that, all the information you learn for the day goes to the front of your brain. If you want it to go to the back of your brain for your long-term memory, you've got to summarize, and you also have to use the Cornell Notes as a tool for studying. So I actually physically take out a paper and show them, how they would do that. But digitally, it'd be a little bit different. I mean, obviously they wouldn't be able to fold the paper, but they can just cover one side with their hand or like a piece of paper and try to come up with, the answers to the questions that they provided to themselves or the pictures. So if you go ahead and go back to the slide, I can show you the example, the second link right there. That's my example that I give to the kids before we start, because I have a lot of kids that are like, Miss, I don't know what to write. So I give them the kind of like clues here. So within the video, kids, you're going to learn about characterization, direct characterization, indirect characterization, and steal. So I kind of give them that hint and write it to the right side. And then that way on the left, they can come up with, what do they want to put? Do they want to put a keyword? Do they want to put a question that says, what is characterization? Or do they want to place a picture? Because everyone learns in a different manner, right? So this all helps the students to learn what works best for them. And then if you scroll down to the bottom, you're going to see I also give them sentence starters. That really helps, especially for our ELO kids, especially for the kids who have a hard time processing information and are not sure, how do I start this? And you'll see it'll say characterization is, and I give the ellipses and I say, you have to fill in the blank. So you have to write down in your own words, what does this mean? What did you learn about characterization? So if you now go on to the next link, back to Canvas, sorry, back to our slide. This is going to be my example that I explain to the kids after they're done taking their notes. And I say, okay, your notes should look similar to mine. And so go ahead and click on that for me for a second. And then you're going to notice how I put questions, and I tell the kids, I put questions for me because that helps me learn better, okay? And I use different colors. So I also make note of how they can use different colors to put their example. They can use different colors to highlight as well, because the notes are for them, and they should tailor it to, you know, their type of way of learning. So I've had students put pictures because that helps them better understand and recall the information. Okay, and then of course at the end I show them how their summary sentences should look. And then I've given you guys 2 examples, one from student A and one from student B. And then so when you look at, you can just pull up one of them. Thank you, Kathy. So if you look just at student A, you can see, you know, how the kid processed the information. What are the holes? You know, what part that, you know, is it that they didn't understand how to write their Cornell notes? Because then that means the information is not going to be organized for them, and they may have trouble remembering this information. So I kind of use this as a way to check for understanding as well. Okay, so this tool could be used for teaching the kids how to interact with the text. And then as a teacher, you can use it to evaluate, okay, where are the kids missing, you know, the information, where are the blanks, where are the holes, what can I do to, you know, what is another tool I can use to help them understand this information, okay? And then, and if you have any questions, please feel free to go ahead and type it in the chat. So this is all on Cornell Notes. So all of this is there for you. You can copy, you can file and copy the template and use it and modify it however you need to for your classes as well. But this is just an example of how I use Cornell Notes with my students, okay? And then we have a couple more. We can go ahead to the next slide.
Super. I just want to jump in here too, Melanie, just to let you know, I love, here's what I love about the Cornell Notes piece as well. I've actually seen Cornell Notes used in a PLC. Like, wow, how would that use? You say, you take the top 3 Cornell Notes in your class, your bottom 3 Cornell Notes kind of formats, and together as a team say, how can we get these kids that look like this with their Cornell Notes to look like this? And come up with some strategies about how to best reach these kids to have them take better notes. So even actually having evidence in that is, I think, really important to generate. So great job there, Melanie. Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, just quickly, I know that time is running short. I know that as we go, we also know that text-dependent questions are important. We know that, again, Dr. Fresher and Dr. Fry have talked really about 4 really text-dependent questions that can kind of lead up the ladder, or thinking about the DOK components. But what does the text say? It's really about details. How does the text work? Thinking about the purpose, this purpose and text structure, right? Basically, what connections can you make to self and others in the world, right? Is that inferential type of question. And lastly is, what does this text inspire you to do? And so what I love about this ladder, no matter if it's an ELA or a science or socialized content, that actually this can be applied, these 4 questions can quickly be applied to any of those settings. And lastly, the third moment is actually the extension or the extending of the text. Of course, the goal is to create evidence or outputs to support their understanding. And of course, we want to provide, if you will, students the opportunity to apply, right, that new knowledge and new skills. And so just some ideas around this. So we know we have written expressions and different outputs when it comes to writing. And again, using your framework, whether it be Jane Schaefer, whether it be RACES or ACES or RAFT or TAP, whatever you want to use, but just know that that's available for you as well. So having digital tools to also support your written responses, I think, are key too. Melanie, do you want to share some thoughts on that?
Yes, and so for my students, especially for Actively Learn, when we use, if you look at the question number 4, I often put notes in there to remind them you know, first, you know, you have to scaffold and you tell them, write an ACEs paragraph or an extended ACEs. And then, you know, later on, then I start to tell them, look at the keywords in the question. How many things do you have to write about? And then determine what type of ACEs paragraph you'll have to write. So eventually I get them, you know, to move on to being more independent about thinking of how are they going to write, on how are they going to provide their answer for this question. And so the digital tools that they have here really help, because by them being able to annotate, then they can go back to their annotations and use it to help them cite their textual evidence for, responding to these types of questions.
Super. And again, we're okay with you modeling that gradual release again of I do, we do, you do together, you do by yourself. Again, same process here of, again, model. Kids can't just by osmosis, again, get to this a lot of times without you helping them get there. So important. Yeah. Some other pieces I know, mind mirrors, you might be familiar with, the rainbow claims, which is really kind of fun. Again, another philosophy's chair maybe can be used here for extension activities, or just, again, using some insights that might come from your digital tools, right? So just know that there's multiple ways of extending for learning as well that go beyond just a quiz or a written response. So it's just some fun activities that can also be generated. So again, just a quick review, the lights on, right, around those three pieces, the ready phase, the interaction, which again, I think is the most critical component. And again, of course, then ending with this kind of extension that happens. But really quickly, I just want, Melanie, do you want to just share any insights about as we kind of wrap up here and before we move to our activity?
Yes, just a lot of the practices that we had discussed and shared, all of that could be used in any subject area, any age level, but you can also use that for each moment to turn the lights on for kids. You can use it for the ready stage. You can use it for the interacting stage as well as the extension. So just know that, they're very, you can, there's no set way to use some of these practices, and they're all really seriously in this book here, and there's a lot of studies on it, and it says yes. And even in classes where you have CC kids that need a little extra help, I mean, that what Sean talked about is, we don't just let the kids go off to do their work independently. Don't forget that stage of, you do it together and have them work with another person, because you can really, survey the class and walk around and see, okay, which kids are getting it and which kids aren't. And then that way you can reteach if necessary, or, pull them into small groups and then work on that, whatever skill with those students. So, that's just my 2 cents. So we can move on.
I love it. So we just have a Jamboard that we're actually going to practice. And I know that Melanie's going to lead this as best we can. I think on the bottom here is the URL that we're going to go to. So is that correct, Melanie? Is that correct?
Yes, it better work. Cross my fingers.
Yes.
So if you click on there, then let's see, can you click on there to open it up? Okay, so if you've not used a Jamboard, what it is just kind of like a parking lot, really, where you would have that poster on the wall in your classroom, and then you give each kid a sticky. Well, here it's just a digital sticky, and then you would just open up the digital sticky note and then type in your response. So what we wanted you to do would be to put on a sticky note any of the best practices that we talked about that you really liked, or it validates what you do in your classroom that you would use to turn on the lights for the kids for the ready, interact, and extend stage. So do you think, can you click on it? Is it going to pop on the screen for us? Because I can't see it on
I am so sorry. Yep, I'm so sorry. Okay. I was doing it here and it was in silent mode there. There we go.
Okay, so you just, can I do this? Grab a sticky note and click on the sticky note on the left-hand side, then type whatever your response is, like whichever best practice that you use or that you would like to use, and then just put it underneath the different moments of a lesson, right? So ready, interact, or extend. What do you think that would be best for those particular moments? And, or maybe just which ones do you like the most? I mean, some of us tend to do the same ones, you know, that we like. I mean, I know I've done that. And then we learn something new and we try something new. So this is my new go-to, which is the Jamboard. I just learned it during distance learning. So it's been very helpful to not only gauge what the kids, you know, to engage them in the lesson, but also to gauge what they know, what they've learned, and what I need to do, like as far as a teacher, to plug in those holes. So feel free to use as many stickies as you want. Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't have access. Am I missing something? Like, I don't have access to the slide. I don't know how to click on this link.
Oh, you know what? Let's put, oh, you already did. Just kidding. Can you put the link in the chat? Can you see it?
Yeah, I should just put the link in the chat.
Okay. So go ahead, see if you can go from there, if it'll pop up for you. Okay.
I think you have to make it so it's editable because, or I don't even know that we can edit it. It's in view only, I think. Am I right?
Gotcha.
Okay, let me do something really quick.
Let me jump in here really quick, guys.
It's done. There you go.
Session, just hold on one second.
Yes.
I
Oh,
see it in the chat area. The two links, and I just want to just talk about that really quick. You need to do an attendance link so you guys can get attendance for this session. And I put the name of the session with that. And then the survey, the session survey link, they want you to do one for this session and then one for the opening session if you attended that opening, because they forgot to have you do that. So that link's there too. Go ahead, Sean and Melanie. Sorry.
No, thank you,
worries.
Kathy. Perfect.
So I just fixed it, and then that was, you know what, that's my fault. I've done this before with my students. They're like, Miss, I can't put anything on there. I'm like, oh my goodness, duh. I keep forgetting to put it and switch it from view. So I apologize, that was my fault. So feel free to go ahead if you can access it now, you should be able to. And then it should work. And then don't forget your attendance and to click on, I think the link is up there if you can see it. I don't know if you want to put the links on there again if people can't. But I just want to say thank you for listening to us and giving us your time here during a Saturday. I know it's really difficult, especially those of you who have grades due next week on Friday, like me. So feel free, if you have any questions, write it in the chat and we will definitely try to help you with anything we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Sean.
Melanie.
Thank you, Kathy.
Appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you, Kathy.
Awesome presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, so